Doesn't look very impressive, does it? But this comes from Britain's newest frontier, the North Sea. The last time this stuff saw the light of day was about 400 million years ago, when the oil we're drilling for today began to form. This is a core sample of the Earth that the drills are passing through, and it's come to the BP's Research Centre for analysis. Here at Sunbury, the research covers not just the North Sea, but how finely the oil can serve us best. The car is on a rolling road, and in this test they're looking at the way lubricating oils can help petrol economy in all climates. And after that budget, we need all the help we can get. The temperature in this test bay can be controlled from an Arctic minus 40 degrees centigrade to a Saharan plus 49 degrees, that's 120 Fahrenheit. But all the research in the world won't alter one simple fact. One day the oil will run out. But when? It would seem sooner rather than later. 1973 was the record year of all time when we used nearly 17 million tonnes of petrol for transport. Despite the fuel-saving speed limits and the high and rising price, last year wasn't much better. We used only 48,000 tonnes less. Now the Chancellor has put up the price of petrol again by 5.5 pence a gallon.
Geoffrey Shepherd is the retail manager of the oil division of BP. Geoffrey, the price of fuel's gone up yet again. Clearly the Chancellor wants to raise revenue, but do you think he's also concerned that we should use less of the stuff?
I think understandably he's concerned, as we all are, about conserving a finite resource, which is petroleum energy. But the interesting thing is that motorists, I think, will very quickly react as they have done traditionally and continue to use their motor cars after that initial shock of an increase in price.
How long do you think we seriously can carry on running our cars on petrol?
Well, I think for a very long time, quite frankly, because it's part of the wider problem of the use of the four main sources of energy, that is coal, nuclear, gas and petroleum energy. Now, over the next few years, one is going to find, I think, that coal and nuclear are going to be used increasingly for electricity generation and general industrial application, leaving petroleum energy to be used for transport and chemicals. Now, that will extend the life of that petroleum-based energy quite considerably.
Even so, the chairman of Shell, Peter Baxendale, was saying over the weekend that he reckons that by 1990, when the North Sea's run its course, we're going to be big importers of oil again. Where else are you looking, and what are the alternatives for this fuel?
Well, there are many parts of the world where everyone is looking, which hasn't yet been explored, for other sources of oil energy. But one has to remember that if the historic rate of discovery is repeated, we're going to need a North Sea oil field or fields to be found every 2 years in future. And the problem really is one of the economics of exploring for oil in very inhospitable places like Alaska and the North Sea, and the relative costs, the enormous costs of getting oil out of those places. It cost us £800 million to develop the Forties field alone. But
that's going to make the price of a gallon a bit bigger, isn't it?
Well, yes, it is. But we consistently ask motorists whether they're going to stop buying petrol. 2 years ago, we asked 2,000 motorists how they would react to the price if the price of petrol went to £1 a gallon. Surprisingly, maybe, most of them said they'd go on motoring.
But perhaps we should be using less. Let me throw a few statistics at you. The American government is planning to have all cars averaging 20 miles per gallon by 1980 and 27.5 miles to the gallon by 1985. Now, we worked out this morning that on the average British car, say, presently doing 30 to the gallon, that would mean bringing the average mileage to the gallon up to 54. Now, shouldn't we be doing the same sort of thing? Shouldn't we be bringing in that kind of legislation?
I think we are all doing this sort of thing. I mean, the motor manufacturers themselves are developing more efficient engines. We are indeed associating with them in that research work. We're developing products which are enabling motorists to conserve gasoline. For instance, we've just recently introduced a fuel economy oil, which saves about 7% of fuel consumption. Now, if every motorist in England switched to using an oil of that type, we would save 750,000 gallons of petrol a day in the UK alone.
Nevertheless, it is still in BP's interest to sell fuel because every gallon you sell realises a bigger profit for you.
Well, yes, it is, but I think we are as concerned as everybody else about the conservation of a finite, valuable natural resource.
Isn't the big problem that while we may have a sort of energy policy for the next few years with the North Sea, there is absolutely no sign of one for the 21st century?
Oh, I wouldn't say that. No, I believe that by the time the 21st century comes along, that there will have been this shift in the utilisation of the alternative forms of energy, thereby considerably extending the life of petroleum energy for transport, and your grandchildren and my grandchildren will still be running on motor cars using petrol.